There's no benefit whatsoever to living in a big city. Well, aside from convenient shopping, frequent public transportation, every type of restaurant you could ever imagine, and social events every day of the week. But yeah, aside from that, sometimes it's nice to experience the world around you without bumping into people or being stuck in a traffic jam. Luckily, not everywhere on Earth is densely populated. In this video, I'm going to talk about the emptiest countries in the world, meaning that they have the lowest population density. To come up with this list, I used population estimates from the United Nations for 2022 and divided them by the land area of each country. Only land, excluding water. Number 8 is Canada, which has around 4.2 people per square kilometer. The combination of cold winters and the Canadian Shield, a large formation of igneous rock which limits soil formation and agriculture, has led to Canada having a very low population density of about 4 people per square kilometer. To put that another way, if every Canadian was spread out evenly across the country, they would each have 40 football fields to themselves. Sounds nice. But of course, the people of Canada are not evenly distributed. They are heavily concentrated within 100 kilometers of the border with the United States, where 2/3 of Canadians live on 4% of the land. So within that narrow strip of land, the population density is much higher. Like in Vancouver, for example, where there are more than 5,400 people per square kilometer. But that just means that everywhere else outside of that strip has an even lower population density than the average. Number 7. Suriname, which has about 3.95 people per square kilometer. Suriname is a former Dutch colony located in South America. It's the smallest sovereign country in South America, and also has the smallest population, only around 616,000 people, and it has the lowest population density. You might expect that the smallest country on the continent would be more crowded than some of the big ones, but most of Suriname is covered in dense tropical rainforest, with 87% forest cover. The population is concentrated along the Atlantic coast, especially the capital city of Paramaribo, a city of only around 250,000 people, which is nothing compared to the huge cities in Brazil and other countries on the continent. So even though the coast is populated, it doesn't bring the average population density up very high. Number 6. Libya, which has around 3.85 people per square kilometer. Libya is located in North Africa, on the Mediterranean Sea, but most of the country is in the Sahara Desert, which is largely uninhabitable outside of a handful of oases. Most of the country's roughly 6.8 million people live along the Mediterranean coast. It's interesting to note that neighboring Egypt has a much bigger population, over 105 million people, and a much higher population density, around 103 people per square kilometer, even though it's mostly empty desert as well. Why? It's because Egypt is home to the Nile River and Nile Delta, along which there's a very narrow strip of fertile land, which has attracted and supported a large population. Number 5. Guyana, which has around 3.75 people per square kilometer. Guyana lies to the west of Suriname, which we mentioned a minute ago. Like Suriname, most of the country consists of uninhabited rainforest, and 90% of its 807,000 people live along the coast, including its capital city Georgetown. Again, it's a small city with only around 240,000 people, or around 350,000 in the metro area. Number 4. Iceland, which has around 3.69 people per square kilometer. Iceland is similar in size to South Korea, but has only 1/150th of its population. If evenly spread out, each Icelander would get about 50 football fields for themselves. Canadian football enthusiasts, it might be time to emigrate. If you've ever visited Iceland, you may have thought that it wasn't particularly empty. If that was the case, then you were probably in the national capital region of Iceland, where the capital city of Reykjavik is found. The capital region is home to an impressive 2/3 of the country's population, but makes up just 1% of the area. Its population density is even more lopsided than Canada's. Number 3.5 is French Guiana, with about 3.6 people per square kilometer. Why is it number 3.5 and not number 3? Well, because it's not a sovereign country. It's an overseas department of France. In other words, it's administered as an integral part of France. But I feel like talking about it, so I'm going to break the rules. Even though French Guiana is about as different from Iceland as possible in terms of location, climate, and geography, it has a similar population density, around 3.6 people per square kilometer. While French Guiana is around the same size as Austria, its 294,000 people could easily fit into a single neighborhood of a densely populated city like Tokyo or Shanghai. It's sandwiched between Suriname and northeastern Brazil, and much of its interior is uninhabited rainforest. Number 3. Australia, which has around 3.39 people per square kilometer. Australia and Canada are similar in many ways. which could be a topic for another video. So it's not surprising that they have population densities in a similar range, 4 people per square kilometre in Canada and 3.39 per square kilometre in Australia. In the case of Australia, it's the hot and dry conditions that prevent human settlement in any area of the country that's far from the coast. Of course, the Australian bush also has heaps of scary, dangerous animals, but I'm told that that's a relatively minor factor. Fun fact, Australia has around double the land area of India, but it has a population comparable to the New Delhi metropolitan area, which is around 5,000 times smaller than Australia. Number 2, Namibia, which has around 3.1 people per square kilometre. The hot, dry Namib Desert, as well as the Kalahari Desert to the east, means that Namibia has the second lowest population density of any independent country in the world. With just 2.6 million people, Namibia has around the same population as the city of Paris, which is just 105 square kilometers in size. Namibia has an area of over 825,000 square kilometers, 1.5 times the size of all of France, 7,857 times bigger than Paris. Keeping in mind Libya, Australia, and Namibia, countries with lots of desert tend to have low population densities, as water is absolutely critical to human survival. That's also relevant for number 1, Mongolia, which has 2.17 people per square kilometer. The country with the lowest population density is, maybe surprisingly, Mongolia. Similar to Namibia, much of Mongolia consists of desert, the Gobi Desert. The Gobi Desert is inhospitable in a different way from the Namib Desert, with very cold temperatures in winter. Temperatures below minus 40 degrees Celsius are common, but temperatures between minus 15 and minus 30 are the norm. What's really crazy about Mongolia being so empty is that it's not that far away, just about 1,000 kilometers from one of the most populated areas in the world, northeastern China. The provinces of Liaoning, Hebei, Shandong, combined with the special cities of Beijing and Tianjin, have a third of Mongolia's land area, but 80 times its population, 254 million people. While Mongolia has the lowest population density of any UN member state in the world, there are a few other territories that have an even lower population density. But they're not independent countries, so their population density isn't normally counted on its own. But who cares? Let's take a look at a couple of them anyway. And nationalists, don't freak out, this isn't a political statement about their independence. The first is the Falkland Islands, which are a British overseas territory, but also claimed by Argentina as Las Malvinas. With just 0.3 people per square kilometer, each Falkland Islander could get 500 football fields to themselves. To find the last two territories, we have to go to the high Arctic, which makes sense as the Arctic and Antarctic are typically not conducive to human settlement. Svalbard. Svalbard is an unincorporated area of Norway, located 950 kilometers away from the mainland. It has just 0.04 people per square kilometer. While this is incredibly low, in the summer its population of 2,500 can more than double due to tourism and seasonal workers. But even then, it's still pretty empty and definitely emptier than the Falkland Islands. Even emptier than Svalbard is Greenland. Greenland is a constituent country within the Kingdom of Denmark. This means it has a high degree of internal autonomy, but Denmark provides military defense, foreign representation, and economic assistance. It's probably no surprise that Greenland is very empty, since 95% of the island consists of glaciers, but just how empty it is might be surprising. Greenland has an area of over 2 million square kilometers, but just 56,000 people, giving it a density of 0.03 people per square kilometer. This means that spread out evenly, every Greenlander would get around 5,500 football fields to themselves. So if you ever need to get away from people for a while, you know where to go. Are there any countries or territories on the list that surprised you? And how about your country? How densely populated is it? Some of the emptiest countries in the world are countries with large desert areas, which are generally very hot. Check out my video on the world's hottest cities. Some of the crazy facts and figures in this video will blow your mind.